We are almost to the finish line of this season, yet these players seem to be getting more and more unhinged as these episodes go by. Like, this has got to be the most manic casting we've had in this new era, right? There's obviously a lot to talk about today, including Liz's wild blow up, but before we get started, make sure you hit that subscribe button below just so you can stay tuned as we continue to wrap up this crazy ass season. Now, let's get started. So this episode kicks off with Liz already pissed off because she was left out of the last vote. This happens to people all the time when they're left out, so there's nothing really new here, but this is probably the first time we're really starting to see Liz step in her bag all season. She's kinda tried making moves before, but she's also been really under-edited this whole time. So it's always been hard for me to see her winning or just being super important to the season in general. Meanwhile, Q is still very much an outcast out there. It doesn't look like anybody's talking to him about game or life or anything really. He doesn't have any allies in the game anymore, and pretty much everybody would be okay with him leaving, so it's not really looking good for Q at first, until Moriah steps in. Moriah sees the value in an outcasted player because he is still a number at the end of the day. He is a wild card, yes, but let's be honest, Q has zero pull in the game right now. I mean, he ain't running shit. And of course, Tiffany is still a very big target out there because she's still holding on to that idol. But the main person leading the charge against Tiffany is Kenzie of all people, and Moriah too. Now, Moriah, I understand her wanting Tiffany out because Tiffany did low-key want to get Moriah out earlier in the game, and that was when they were all supposed to be in an alliance together. So I definitely understand Moriah still being salty about that one. But Kenzie deciding to betray her number one is weird to me, especially since Kenzie admits that she's only doing this to impress other people. Like, she literally says that betraying an ally is a great resume move, which I couldn't disagree with more. There's just other ways to control the game and make big moves that don't involve losing a loyal number. Like, if Kenzie thought that Tiffany was playing a better game than her and that she'd never ever be able to beat Tiff ever, then I'd kinda understand, but even then it's too early. But purposely betraying someone for no reason just seems a little unnatural and a little too checklisty for me. Next up, the players all head off to the reward challenge, which ends up being Applebee's. Everyone is obviously starving, especially Liz, who has severe allergies and is unable to eat most things. So of course, even though this is a mid-tier chain restaurant at best, everyone is super excited to eat. Q ends up winning this challenge, and now he gets to pick 3 people to join him for dinner, and this is where things start to get wild. Like, y'all, literally my mouth was agape this whole time. I was looking like this. So here's a few things that we know. We know that Liz is allergic to damn near everything out there on the island. The coconut, the fish, she can't eat any of it. So it's pretty safe to say that she's probably the hungriest out of everybody. But we also know that Liz has been targeting Q for a while now, and she just voted him out to leave. So when Liz starts to do all this crying and begging, you can only guess what Q's response is.
You have one person, Liz, sobbing. She's talked about food this entire season, how she can't eat certain things, therefore she's more hungry.
But Kenzie was with me since day one, so my decision is basically gonna be to bring Kenzie.
It's harsh, yes, but to me, it's also fair. Q won that game fair and square, and the decision he makes is the decision he makes. Liz knew what she was signing up for throughout the very long and vigorous casting process. And since she's used to the food struggle, in her preseason interviews, she talked a lot about how she was hoping that her other castmates would cry and suffer because of their starvation. This is a direct quote from Liz in her Parade preseason interview. Hopefully, none of the other contestants and castaways have had that food insecurity and scarcity, and I can't wait to watch them crumble. I can't wait for them to cry about how hungry they are, to look at something and know they can't eat it, aka your reward challenge. That's my every single day. So Liz came in understanding and hoping that the starvation will make everybody else crumble. And when that didn't happen, when it happened to her instead, she got pissed.
I'm pissed! I see you eat every day! Q, you almost blew up my whole game!
Like, whoa, that was a lot. But I gotta be honest, y'all, I kind of stand this moment. It was very much giving Debbie.
And I'm pissed!
Again, I don't think Q is evil or a villain or anything for the choice he made, especially after going back and reading about how Liz really felt preseason. Plus, out of everybody left standing out there, Q is the last person that I'd guess would just succumb to tears and guilt tripping like that. So I think it's fair game, but of course it's not a nice game. So now people are just more pissed off at Q than they were before. He tried using the reward dinner as a way to rekindle friendships and gain allies again, but it's just way too late. Tiffany and Kenzie still want nothing to do with him, and his long game is looking pretty bleak as the group heads into the next immunity challenge. This one ends up being that bucket endurance comp, which was pretty intense to watch for a while, but in the end, Charlie is able to pull out yet another win. I gotta say, Charlie's edit just seems to get better and better with each episode. Like, he should definitely be a top target right now, especially with all those immunity wins, but he's just not, which is making me look at him as a potential winner. Back at camp, Tiffany and Q seem to be the only ones in trouble. Tiffany still has that idol on her, and Q is just Q. The important thing to note here is that Kenzie has seemingly completely changed her mind and did a 180 about voting to evict Tiffany. Now she's saying she wants Q out instead, which is a big mistake because she's already thrown Tiffany's name out there and drug her name through the mud. So now Kenzie looks like a flake and kind of like a coward to Moriah, which just isn't a good look. In fact, this whole segment is the main reason why Kenzie isn't in my top spot as a winner pick now, after she's been for so long. Moriah does still want to take Tiffany out here though, so we are going to see her gathering her numbers and allies to try to secure that vote. After 10 episodes, we are finally seeing Moriah as a leader and a playmaker out here. Like, it's about time. The group then heads off to Tribal, where again, there are no idols played, despite the last 2 blindsides and despite every single person leaving with an idol in their pocket so far. I was really hoping that Tiffany would play her idol here, especially since it's gotten her into so much trouble so far, but no. The votes are read and Tiffany is voted out. Damn. I just want us to all normalize playing our idols more, for real. Especially since it's just gonna get placed right back on the beach, so you could potentially find it again. But I will say I love how entertaining this season has been so far, despite no idols and only one advantage being used. It shows that we can have a good season without all these twists clogging up the game. After this episode, I've changed my winner rankings around a lot. Kenzie was my front runner for a while, but this episode just was not a good look for her. So now I'm calling Charlie my number 1, Kenzie my number 2, and this is crazy, but Ben is my number 3. Now, hear me out. The only reason why I have Ben ranked above Moriah is because Ben has kind of been put on this pedestal and shown to us a lot since episode 1, whereas Moriah's edit has barely been there. Like, Moriah used her extra vote that one time, and I'm pretty sure that's like the only advantage or twist or idol or anything that's been played all season, yet we never really heard why. We didn't hear any confessionals from her about that move or anything. The show just completely ignored it, and they usually don't gloss over things like that when there's a winner involved. So of course, I want to know, what did you all think of this episode and Liz's wild outburst? And now that we have a little bit more insight, who can you see winning this whole thing? Let me know in the comments below. I feel pretty good about Charlie. I mean, I feel like he's been shown to us consistently throughout the season for both game and personal reasons, But at the same time, I'm not ready to count Kenzie out completely. I don't know. I'm still not completely sure, but of course, I'll be back next week to update you all as we start to wrap up this wild season. I'll talk to you all later, but until next time, bye.